What's going on, traders? In this video, I'm going to be covering my Tradingview settings, pretty much how I use Tradingview, all the different layouts I use, the different tools that I use, how I have everything set up. So let's get into it. So first things first, I do have two screens. So I am looking at a monitor here and a monitor here. So I am going to show you guys both of them and basically what I keep pulled up on each screen. So first things first, on my left-hand screen, so over here, every single morning I have dollar index up and it looks just like this. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on my screen and I'm going to show you guys all the different settings that I have. So for the body colors, I like to use the kind of legacy ICT colors. So I use the green here, second up from the bottom. And then for everything else, I just use standard black all the way to the right. And that's pretty much it on this one. If you don't already, make sure that you have your time zone set to New York. Since we're in daylight savings time right now, mine is UTC -5. So recommend that everyone configure their charts to have it set up that way. And also you can configure some things inside of here. I like to just display the ticker over the description. So you can see it change up here. So I just use the ticker. And you can also change these different things or turn them on and off if you use that stuff. But I like to keep things clean, keep it pretty simple. So this is exactly how I keep mine set up. For the scales, don't really touch anything here. Canvas, I kind of have it set up here where I do have like darker black for the different labels and stuff on the horizontal and vertical axis. So you can set that up here and you can see those. And then for the background, I just use the gray here. And then for my crosshair, I like to use a gray as well. So that's the thing that moves around on the screen. And then also if you use different indicators or anything like that. So I don't say that I use indicators, I use tools just to kind of help me visualize what I'm looking for on the chart. So you might want to add some additional padding to the left hand, right hand, or bottom side of the actual chart. So for me, I use a 50 bar right, 10 and 10 for the top and the bottom, and that works fine for me. When it comes to the trading settings, you can also configure the buy and sell buttons on here as well if you want to keep those on. One thing I do recommend is everyone change their money to either ticks or percentage gain. And this is a much better way to view the actual charts. You're not focused on your P&L. You're not focused on how much money you're up or down or anything like that. I personally like to use ticks since I trade the futures markets, but if you guys want or like it better, you can use the percentage. But this is one of the best settings that you can have onto your Tradingview charts. And ultimately, it just helps you stay focused and disciplined and not so focused on the money. So now we have the executions. So this is if you have different executions that you've taken, you can plot them on the chart. And that's pretty much it for events. I don't keep anything turned on here. So that is the chart settings in and of itself. And then now we can get into some of the different tools I use, how I use it, how I have my different layouts configured, and I'll walk you guys through all of that. So the first thing is I do keep my favorites bar right here at the bottom of my screen. And basically you can move this wherever you want. And this is pretty much all the main tools I use on a daily basis. So number one, we have the fib retracement tool. So we could just plot that on the chart. I'll go ahead and show you guys my settings for this as well. And they're pretty simple. I just mainly use the 0, 1, and the -5. And ultimately that helps me get a gauge on premium and discount markets. And that's really what I'm trying to see when I'm using the actual fib projections. So when it comes to the other, or I should say the fib levels, but when it comes to the fib projections, I like to use -1, -1.5, -2, -2.5, and then I'll toggle these on as needed, similar to ICT. All right, so that is my fib settings, and I'm just going to close that out. That is pretty much the main thing I use on a daily basis, in addition to horizontal lines, vertical lines, and trend lines. I'm not a trend line trader, but I do like to use trend lines to mark out specific things on the actual chart. So the way that I use the actual trend lines itself is basically I'm just grabbing the line and I'm using it to delineate like a high or a low, for example, or maybe measure out a fair value gap. but I'm not actually using it in the sense of a normal trend line where you would actually look for, you know, retest and stuff like that. I'm not familiar with that at all, and that's not something that I've studied or know how to use. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but I use the trend lines to actually draw things on the chart like that. And I also use a horizontal ray, which gives me the price level. So when I'm looking at highs or lows on the actual chart, I like to see the price that that high or low is at. And if you don't know how to set this up, basically you just click into the settings of the horizontal ray, and then you can go here under style and choose price label, and that's going to display the price label here to the right. So that's how I like to keep mine. And I'll also use the text feature on the line, and I'll just put something like buy side liquidity, and you know, I'll move it over to the right or something like that so I could see it as I'm on the chart. So these are just kind of the main, you know, things I'm doing on a daily basis and how I use these tools. But those are the main three. That's why they're the first and my favorite section. Then I use the vertical lines, sometimes, not too often though. And I also like to use the arrows. If I'm recording my screen, I'll use the arrows to make notes to myself and also just to have in the recording. And I do use this one a lot. This is the rectangle. So this is kind of like my favorite tool, if you will, on TradingView. So I use this to measure out fair value gaps, whether they're bullish or bearish. And I also have little templates saved here where I can just conveniently toggle it to BISI, and it'll delineate the BISI for me. If you want to know how to do that as well, you can actually just double click, and then what you can do at the bottom here, you can click save as template, and then just configure it how you want, and then save it as a template. And then on TradingView, you can right click and select it very easily. So it's a good little feature. So moving along the list, I also have the long and short positions. So this is when I'm framing out my different trades. And basically I just use those to then right click, create a limit order, and that will allow me to measure out the different risk and the reward and stuff like that on the actual position. Text, I will use this as well just to kind of delineate things on the chart. And then I like to switch sometimes away from the crosshair and the actual arrow, and I'll use this. And then sometimes I like to delineate like what kind of pattern I'm looking for, and then I'll draw it on the chart like that. So that is my favorites toolbar, and that's pretty much everything I use on that. Now, getting back into the chart itself and the different layouts that I use, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I do use dollar index pretty much every single day. I do have a couple tools that you see here on my chart that are automatically plotted for me, which is a huge time saver and I absolutely love. One of the main things I'm looking at is Asia range, the standard deviations above and below, New York midnight open. I like to see the 8:30 open as well as the 9:30 open. Now this is mainly how I'm using it for futures. This doesn't matter too much for dollar index. I don't really need to see these levels. The main one is the actual New York open at midnight, which gives me the, you know, Judas swing and all that stuff, so I can kind of see what I'm looking at visually. I also use a few higher time frame plotted charts here on the right hand side as well, so that way I don't have to toggle to the higher time frames, and I always have a clear picture of what's going on the lower time frame all the way up to the daily chart. So right here I have an hourly. Basically I'm showing 4 candles, so that way I could see what the last 4-hour candle did. Then I have a 4-hour candle over here as well, which delineates 6 of them, which shows me an entire day on the 4-hour chart. And then I have 1 daily candle here. So basically, price is fractal. As you guys know, the daily candle here is represented by 6 4-hour candles, and then those 6 4-hour candles can be broken down into 4 1-hour candles per 4-hour candle, and that's how I look at this stuff. So this gives me a very clear representation, and basically I'm always on the 15-minute time frame, and then I can just drop down to the lower time frames and see all that stuff. Now, if I do go out to the 4-hour or the daily, for example, you see those disappear as well. So I have all that stuff configured. If you guys want me to talk more about the actual tools I use on the chart, just to not make this video super long, drop me a comment below and just say ICT Tools, and then I'll make a specific video dedicated to all the different ICT tools that I use on TradingView, how they help me, and basically what I use them for, okay? So moving right along, this is how I keep the dollar index chart. I also like to use what's referred to as a quad box. And this is basically my snapshot of everything I'm trying to see on the chart. So I'm taking a look at the correlation between both ES and NQ, which is the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And that just gives me a clear read on what's actually going on from a correlated market standpoint. So number one, you can see the ES chart over here on the left. This is a 15-minute time frame. The NQ chart on the right-hand side, 15-minute time frame. And then I have a 1 minute below on each as well. Again, you can see a lot of different tools that I'm using on my charts to give me a clear read of what's going on. Similar to the dollar index, I'm looking at the hourly, the 4 hour, and the daily, hourly, 4 hour, daily on both of these, which I can see the daily, the 4 hour, the 1 hour, then the 15-minute, and then the 1 minute here at the very bottom. And this again gives me such a clear read on what I'm looking for during the day throughout the market. So absolute game changer to have these different things available where, you know, it's just on the chart for you. I remember when ICT started the mentorship, I had to actually plot everything manually. And while that's good while you're learning, because you want to really get a feel for everything and how it all works, it does take a lot of time. So it's really good to be able to have these things that I can just kind of throw on the chart. It's good to go. I don't have to mess with it at all after that. So you see all that stuff set up here. I'm looking at this again on my left-hand monitor, which is shared with the dollar index. And then occasionally I'll toggle between these as well. This is basically my 90-minute charts of the 3 indexes as well. I use the continuous charts for all of these just to keep a clear read on what's going on. Ultimately, this just helps me delineate, like SMT, for example. I can see that these highs are lower, these highs are higher, and then these highs are also higher, right? So that just gives me a clear read, again, from like a higher time frame standpoint. These are 90-minute charts. They never change. I keep them on 90-minute charts all the time. And that's basically how I like to look at it. Also, if you guys are familiar with, you know, IPTA and, you know, the algorithm itself, and you've looked into the 90-minute chart specifically, you'll find that there is a lot to uncover there. Lastly, I do have a liquidity kind of tool that I use as well. This just helps me delineate the liquidity over the past 3 days, both the highs and the lows of the last 3 daily candles. Also, as ICT teaches, you can grade these different liquidity pools in ranges of 10, 20, or 30 pips or handles in the sense of the actual futures markets. So that's what you see here. I keep mine basically set to two depths, 2 levels of liquidity basically. So you can see here there's 2. I can add more if I want, but basically this gives me a clear read. And then again, I'm looking at the previous 3 days liquidity on all of these charts and just trying to see where price is at and ultimately what the draw on liquidity is. So that is everything that I keep on my left-hand monitor. You guys have seen it all. Let's go ahead and dive into what I look at on this screen here, which is my main kind of trading station, right? So I do have a completely different layout. I like to use the black screens here with the white candles. Since I am actively trading on these charts here, it just is a bit better for me to kind of see what's going on visually and just keep things super simple. So ultimately, when it comes to the actual chart itself, you can see for these, I do have the ticker symbol displayed with the buy and sell buttons. And inside of here, I do use my tools. This is where I do my markups. So I am coming in, I'm looking at, like, for example, this is a BISI. I'll just go ahead and mark this out, use my template, boom. Now it's a BISI here. So if we trade into that level, for example, we may want to push back into it, create some sort of consolidation, run the stops, break the structure, come back in, boom. And then I'm looking for things like this as I'm actually going into these charts. Again, the ones with the black screen, this is like my focus pretty much 24/7, where everything on the left-hand monitor just gives me a clear read at a higher level what's going on with price action. So diving into how I use these two here, again, I'm using them for my markups specifically. So I do keep ES on one side and I keep NASDAQ on the other. So you can see that these two are basically side by side. Again, I can measure the correlation and the strength between the two. If there's SMT on the highs, SMT on the lows, those type of things, gives me a clear read as to what is going on with price. So for these, I'm basically using all time frames. I'll always do my top-down analysis starting from the daily and the weekly charts. Don't use the monthly too much unless it's the start of a new month. What I'm doing for the most part is going into the lower time frame charts, dropping down from the daily, 4 hour, 1 hour, 15 minute, 5 minute, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, all that good stuff. So I'm going through them sequentially like that, marking up both pairs, ES and NQ, getting a read for what's going on with price. And that's basically that. When I see an order that I want to take, I'll just go ahead and put my buy or sell limit thing on here, and then I'll do the create limit order, and then boom, I've got my market order in and I'm good to go. And that's an in-depth walkthrough of my TradingView settings, all the different tools that I use, how I have my different monitors set up. If you guys like videos like this, definitely leave a like on this video. Again, if you want me to make a more advanced video on the different tools that I use that I have over on my left-hand screen, I'd be happy to walk you guys through that. Just leave a comment below saying ICT Tools. If we get a bunch of comments of people saying they want that, I'll make a more advanced video. But for the most part, those are all the settings I use. And I would recommend that if you guys don't use TradingView, check TradingView out. There is a link in my description. You don't have to pay for it. You can use the free plan, all that good stuff, but it is a very good tool for charting and, you know, just however you want to use it for your trading, but I love it. So that's going to be it for this video. Again, if you guys enjoyed it, hit that like button, leave a comment below, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.